Ladies, gentlemen, boys, girls, welcome back to SJMMA, and today I'm doing a video I've been thinking about for quite a while now. I'm going to save the UFC, right? I whacked my cape on and I'm going to do it, right? Let's get into it. But before we can solve the problem, we need to understand what that is. And number one on the list is that the cards are getting weaker due to oversaturation of the cards. This is supposed to be the worldwide leader in combat sports. We're always told that, normally by John Anik at the start of pay-per-views. Some of these cards don't represent that, and that ain't good. Next up, negativity around the Apex. I am going to be covering that in a bit more detail in a bit, but all I will say is the Apex has got a bad rap, but that's not to do with the actual place itself, it's the way it's been utilised, but we'll come back to that later in the video. Next up is about card placement. Mainly newcomers, but also just fighters in general. How can somebody win a fight on the Contender Series and then be straight high up on a main card of a UFC event? It shouldn't work like that. The prelims are meant to build talent, regardless of where the event's being held. That's what the prelims are supposed to be. I don't know why they went away from that. And finally, how the hype around the UFC is only really at its most around a pay-per-view. Now, of course, a pay-per-view event is naturally going to draw more eyeballs, as it always will do, but when I say hype, I don't mean that like nobody's watching, for example. I watch every card regardless of how shit it is, but I'm talking more about the wider audience in this video. I think they're the ones that are going to need this more. Hardcore fans will watch anything they put out and enjoy it to some degree, but I think if they want to try and attract the most eyeballs consistently throughout a month and a year, they need to start to work on that kind of thing. Here's a little look at 2024 so far. Now, the fights in red were held in the Apex, the fights in blue were crowded fight nights, and the greens were pay-per-views. Let's have a bit of a dive into these. We started off with Ankalaev Walker 2 at the Apex, which is a decent main event in that arena. There was a bit of heat on it after their previous no contest. It may turn out to be a title eliminator. I got no problem with that as a main event for a fight night in the Apex. That's fine. Obviously, we had UFC 297 and 298 in January and February, as you'd expect, relatively decent main events. It's the in-between that I've got a problem with. Roman Dolidze versus Nassourdine Imavov is not a main event of a UFC event, but it's still miles better than Jackamanson against Joe Pyfer. That's ridiculous. Jackamanson Joe Pyfer, yes, it can be on the main card of an Apex fight night, maybe the prelims of a pay-per-view. You cannot build a card around that, I don't care where you are. That is a disgrace. The Mexico card was okay. The main and co-main was pretty good. There was some decent up-and-coming talent on the card as well. There's nothing really wrong with that. It went down pretty well, but Rosenstrike Gaziv, I mean, come on. Seriously? I'll come back to what I said earlier. Worldwide leader in combat sports. We always hear that. Jairzinho Rosenstrike was number 12 in the division. He's decent. He's a gatekeeper. He's okay. He can beat people that are below him, but not beat the guys above him. He's alright. But Gaziv, I don't even know what to say, man. You find him in Bahrain, he's literally beat up my fucking postman and a load of sheep farmers. He wins on the Contender Series, he knocks out Martin Buday, who somehow has a higher blood pressure than he does. And he's in the main event of a UFC card? I'm not having it, I'm sorry. This is the problem I'm talking about. There was basically a month in between the two pay-per-views there, and all we had to look forward to there was two lackluster cards. That month, the entire of UFC fucking Instagram and Twitter was dead. Completely lost so many eyeballs. It can't happen like that. So then, what do you do about it? Well, let Uncle SJ tell you. Number one, 3 cards a month, no more. 1 pay-per-view, 1 fight night in front of a crowd, 1 Apex. It's the perfect formula. You get the best of everything there. You can save money by going to the Apex and you still give the fans what they want. Perfect. Next up, less cards a year means less opportunities to hang on to deadwood that you're just burning money and handing to. I know that sounds harsh. Every fighter in the UFC has trained a lot to get to where they are. I know it's a fucking dog-eat-dog world and it's a bit harsh, but again, I'll come back to that saying, worldwide leader in combat sports. Half the roster on the UFC does not relate to that or show that in any way. Like, I don't know the exact number on the UFC roster, but I think it's about 700-800, maybe 600. You could get rid of a third of those tomorrow morning. Nobody would notice who's actually watching the sport, and you wouldn't lose out on any stars because most of them have already lost at least once. You're just burning money. I don't get it. Just fucking release them. Let them do an Impa Kasanganai. Go to PFL. Win £1 million. Done. By having less people on the roster and having less fights, you'll be able to put more interesting fights on every single card, which will keep our interest as high as possible for as long as possible, rather than just having a week of interest and then 3 weeks of dullness, if you get what I'm saying. And at the moment, I think the UFC do 12 or 13 pay-per-views a year and then maybe 4 or 5 crowded fight nights a year. If you use the method I've just said, that ups to 24, and you can give Texas 2 cards a year, or you can go to Middle East, or you can go to England and Ireland. You can go to new places more often, and that only grows the company. The amount of dickheads on this platform that I see saying the Apex is the problem. No, it's not. It makes the UFC a lot more self-sufficient. Obviously, that helped during COVID, but it's more of an intimate experience. It's a completely different kind of product to watch. I'm sure it's completely different to fighting as well. The issue is how it's being used, utilised, and I suppose shown by the UFC themselves. They literally use it as like a fucking IV machine to keep the company alive for 2 weeks at a time until the next pay-per-view. It has so much more potential than that. If we saw it less, we'd appreciate it more. That's the baseline of what I'm trying to say. I understand it saves them money, but like I just said, they're paying at least 200 fighters who are literally earning them nothing back. Millions a year. They're burning money that way. Why does the venue make any difference? And like I just said, if we went there less, we'd appreciate it more for its nuances. And if the cards that were actually there were good, we'd appreciate it more. And on that note, let's move on. It's all well and good me sitting here on me fat ass and explaining how the schedule needs to change. The cards themselves need to get better. On any UFC show, top 10 contenders at the least, unless there's a fun exception. If it's a fun fight that people are going to be interested in, fine, but top 10 needs to be top 10. And the co-main event, there has to be some kind of stakes on these fights. They have to mean something. I put rankings involved here, so it could be a guy that's on a bit of a skid in the rankings against a nice prospect coming up, that kind of thing, or just two lower ranked guys. There needs to be stakes on every card, in my opinion at least. And the feature bout, like I said, the Apex cards, they don't have to be completely brim with big names. Just hand us fun fights with names that we somewhat recognise. That's all we ask for. I don't want to see some random geezer from Turkey who won on the Contender Series on a feature fight of any card. Not happening. Under that, women's MMA. Now, I know not everybody likes to watch women's MMA. Sometimes it is toilet, I'll be honest with you. But I don't mind the fact that they get a main card spot. I think that's fine. But only one. Okay? Only the one. That's all I'm going to say. And then to start off an Apex card, you need some fireworks. Like I've said here, you could always rely on the big boys. Not Rosenstrike or fucking Gazeev. Especially not Gazeev, the fucking ogre. But yeah, those guys always seem to put on, well, normally seem to put on a show. Even if they're not heavyweights, just guys that you know are going to throw down. That's what you want at the start of a main card of a UFC event. You need to be intrigued. You need to see something amazing. You need that at the start of any card, including Apex. And it's a similar layout with the crowded fight nights, but just a little bit higher up with the fact there's a crowd there. It's a bit more of a prestigious event. Main event, top 5 to 8, contenders, title eliminators, that kind of thing. Co-main event, 2 ranked contenders. Again, unless there's like a big name, but ranked is important here. In the feature bout, recognisable names. I'm not talking about doing Conor Diaz 3 in this position, but just names that people can look at and go, I know that guy, he fought that guy, and he fought that guy, oh, he knocked him out. That kind of thing, not these no-names. The fourth fight, obviously, WMMA, you got to. And to start the card off again, you need a barn burner. To start every main card, needs to be a good one. And the pay-per-view layout, usually main and co-main will be title fights. However, if there's a Conor fight or some massive contenders, you could do that over 5 rounds in the co-main, that's fine. Now, the feature bout of a pay-per-view, I think, is really important. It's usually the one just before the real meat, and it's the one that kind of makes the transition from, okay, it's been good, now we're on to the good stuff. This is what I don't get about the UFC, right? You would think with all the shit they put out, all the pay-per-views would be massive. Neil Magny, Mike Malott was the feature bout of 297. I don't care if Malott's Canadian. I'm not having that. That's fucked. And again, like I've already said, the way you start any main card of any UFC event is with a fun scrap. It's how you get people enticed. You don't just give them shit like a 15-minute grappling match with unranked fucking contenders, which they seem to like to do a lot. That's not going to get people interested, the casuals. Not going to work, mate. Right, people, I've given you an example month. I'm going to use the parameters I've set in this video and try and make a month of UFC action. Now, I know I've put July here. These fights won't happen in July, but it's just a guideline, do you know what I mean? I've also tried to keep this as realistic as possible as well. I'm not trying to overstack every card so they're like mini pay-per-views. This is realistic. This is what it should be. So don't think it's going to be craziness every single fight. This is realistic and it could definitely be plausible. Our main event on July the 6th in this alternate fucking reality that I've created will be at the Apex Centre, and it'll be Arnold Allen against Edson Barboza. Now, Edson's just outside the top 10, but he's always in fun fights and people know him and love him, so we can make an exception there. Like I said, it's not an absolute shit yourself, oh my god, what an amazing fight, I'm going to tell my grandkids about this one, but it's a good, solid, 5-round fight that you can build a card around. Arnold Allen needs to bounce back, Edson Barboza's on a decent run at the moment. Great fight against Sadiq Youssef, last up. It makes sense. That is an Apex Fight Night main event. That is what it should be, in my opinion at least. In the co-main, Roman Dolidze, Chris Curtis. Roman Dolidze's lost 2 straight now. He's just inside the top 10, and Chris Curtis has just got a win. I think he's number 13, number 14. Two ranked guys towards the bottom, not massive hype around it, but the winner can look into the top 10. There's stakes there. Every card needs to have stakes. Next up, Randy Brown, Michael Morales. Like I said, this is not something to shit and piss over, but Randy Brown has been around for a long time. He's known by a lot of people. He's normally in a fun fight, and Michael Morales is a decent prospect on the way up. The winner gets a ranked opponent. There's stakes there again. So important. Viviane Araújo against Miranda Maverick. Again, it's not a fight that's going to set the world on fire, but if you're going to have a women's fight, at least make them ranked. At least make it mean something. Why have rankings if you're not going to use them high up cards? I mean, come on. Again, it's not a superb fight, but if you're going to have women's fights on cards, which they will, high up cards, you might as well make it half decent. And then to open up the card, light heavyweight bangers in Rodolfo Bellato and Guskov. I mean, Rodolfo Bellato is a big dude, he's got a big fuck off head, he hits hard, it'd be fun, and Guskov looks like Anthony Smith but can actually fight. And again, hits hard, a lot of finishes. You're probably going to see a finish, it would be fun, the crowd would love it. Well, I say the crowd, the small crowd in the Apex would love it. You'd love it at home. Again, got to start cards off good. Just before I show you a concept fight night card, I just want to interject again, beautiful people, and just let you know that again, I'm only using fighters that are currently not matched up with anybody, so that does limit who I can do. I'm trying to keep it realistic, and I'm only focusing on the main cards in this video, because if I didn't, it'd be too fucking long. So, let's get on with what I think a crowded fight night should look like. Main event, Brian Ortega, Josh Emmett. They're both coming off relatively decent wins. I mean, Emmett's was really good. Ortega, not sure about him on his eagle comeback, as he likes to say, but still, he's number 3 in the world. He's coming off a win. Emmett, I think, is number 6, number 7. Like I said, there's stakes here. The winner is in the title picture just about. The loser is going to have to be used to funnel up contenders. Again, massive stakes. If you win a fight like this, it changes your career, and if you lose it, the same could happen, but the other way. You need these on cards. You need those pivotal moments. In my opinion, the co-main event of a crowded fight night should be able to headline an Apex card and a good Apex card on its own, and Hooker vs Moicano is definitely that. They're both well-known names in the community. Dan Hooker's always been loved for his fighting style, and Hanato's been doing his thing on social media recently. He's got a bit more of a fan base. This is perfect for a co-main event. Not the main event of a crowded fight night, not main card of a pay-per-view, but here, spot on. And then the feature bout, Rob Font against Jonathan Martinez. Again, a fight that could potentially headline an Apex card on its own. Rob Font, a recognisable name, fought the best in the division. Martinez coming up, trying to take his spot. With the name value of Rob Font, like I just said, this is perfect for this placement on this card. Next up, Mayra Bueno Silva against Miesha Tate. They were supposed to fight recently, it never happened. Obviously, Bueno Silva has just lost her title fight. Miesha Tate is coming off of a win. A lot of people know Tate. Is it a particularly well-even matchup? Probably not. Silva would probably smash her, but like I said, people know Tate, and Bueno Silva just fought for a belt. So again, there's stakes. If you're going to put women's fights on main cards, at least make them mean something. And I think a great way to open up a crowded fight night would be something like a Jacoby against Vitor Petrino. It's on the same lines of Bellato against Guskov, but just a bit higher up the ladder. Two guys who can punch, they can grapple, it'll be fun. They're two big dudes, anything can happen. You get the crowd going with that, which is what you need to do, as I keep saying. And then you miss a week, and you go into a pay-per-view weekend. And this is how the UFC should be structuring their pay-per-views. Again, I'll say it one more time. I'm working with what I can, using unmatched up fighters. So, especially the co-main event, don't shout at me, alright? I'm working with what I can. Main event, Leon versus Bilal. Probably the best title fight that can be realistically made in July. Again, it's not crazy. I'm not trying to make all these cards of the year, but it's a title fight in a relatively heavyweight class. Leon Edwards is not a star, but people know him, and Bilal's annoying. So seeing him get head kicked to be fun, right? Like I just said, don't shout at me, but I am going to do on this kind of concept card a women's MMA title fight in the co-main event, because again, I'm trying to make this realistic for if it happened in July. Like if there was a Max Holloway available, or if you wanted to do a Poirier Covington 5-rounder, if that was on the table, I'd do that instead. But here we are. Now, this is what I call a pay-per-view feature bout with contenders. Jared Cannonier, Khamzat Chimaev. Have some of that. But I will say, I know Khamzat will be doing Ramadan soon. I don't know if that will affect July. If any of you legends can fill me in on that, I would love to know about it, because I wasn't too sure when I was making this video. So yeah, I'd love to learn more if anybody knows. Like, you get the star power of Khamzat, as well as you get 2 title fights, and you get other top fights that are lower down on the card as well. This is where the likes of Khamzat should be on cards. While he's a contender, of course, if he ever does win the belt, he'll be straight at the top, as all champions are. But yeah, for now, this is how you get the most out of Khamzat. 1, you give him a spotlight, but 2, you don't put him as the main attraction. He's almost like, you hear the term kind of people's main event thrown around a lot. Jared Cannonier, Khamzat Chimaev on this card would be the people's main event. Jan Blachowicz against Khalil Roundtree. Neither of those two have the star power over Khamzat Chimaev, but Jan Blachowicz has been a champion. He beat Israel Adesanya. People know him. He's wily. He's underrated. He can do his job. And Roundtree is an exciting finisher with great Muay Thai. Perfect for a main card. Again, there's stakes there. So important. Then their main card opener, Lewis Rosenstrike, I guess. Just, we like to see people sprawled out on the floor, and these two are quite good at knocking people unconscious. So, again, you draw people in with the main card opener and the featured prelim, which is also important. But this, come on, it's two big heavyweights with insane power. Nobody's not watching this. Come on now. I think the main takeaway from this video that I'd like you beautiful people to have is less is more sometimes when it comes to the UFC. There's no need to oversaturate. There's no need to throw on shit cards and slap them up at the last minute. You space them out more. The quality of the cards rise. You can get rid of some of the deadwood. And overall, it's a more entertaining, exciting product more consistently. Like, I understand the Contender Series is supposed to breed new talent. That's fine. I love the Contender Series when I watch it, but you can't take these guys and put them straight into the limelight when nobody knows them. That's what the preliminaries are for. You build people up in there. You don't just throw them straight to the wolves. They've already tried that with fucking Gaziv, Abbas Magomedov, and a load more. Hasn't worked. And the great thing about our beautiful sport of MMA is even if the card looks shit on paper, it could be a great night of fights. And you could have some fantastic moments and some great finishes and some great scraps between some names you may not even know that well. That is part of the beauty of the sport, but you need to draw those eyeballs in as well and keep people entertained and interested. And just one last thing, Dana, if you are listening, hello, how are you? If you do decide to use any of my ideas here, I would like a bit of, let's say, commission, shall we? All I want to do is wax some butter on my toast, but it's like £4.75 a tub. I can't deal with it anymore. Do you know what I mean? That's why I need you lot to watch the video, like and subscribe so I can get some money. Make good content for you lot, because that's what this is about, right? No financial incentives at all. Never. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video, lovely people. If you disagree with anything that I said, if you like the way the UFC currently do it, well, you're a bit fucking nuts. But if you do, that's your opinion, do let me know. If you like the idea of the way I've set the cards up, let me know. If you change anything, also let me know. But I'll see you very soon. Have a cracking day. Take care.